Hello music fans, you're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music, and this is New Music's Alive in 2025. I'm going to talk about 12 albums. Yeah, that's right, 12. It's a busy week. They came out on February 28th, 2025, so that was a popular day for releasing new music, and I'll talk about them in my order of preference and give my quick first impressions, starting with Havukruunu and their album Tavastland. This is the fourth album by this Finnish band, and this is melodic black metal with folk and atmospheric black metal, or they sometimes call themselves pagan black metal. And I'm going to put this in my excellent tier. I thought their last album from 2020 and the two early release singles I heard from Tavastland ahead of time were excellent too. So I was looking forward to this. The two singles I heard ahead of time were the title track, Tavastland, and a track called Havukruunu Ja Talvenvario. Uh, I'm sorry if I pronounce those song names incorrectly, because all the song titles, all the lyrics here are in Finnish. I do not speak Finnish, so I will probably not pronounce anything correctly. But Havukruunu really continued the excellence from their last album on this one. And I'm not usually the biggest fan of black metal. Uh, I've been getting more into it lately. I tend to like the progressive and the cinematic black metal music, sometimes some of the atmospheric stuff. This isn't the most progressive black metal out there. It definitely has some progressive spirit, with 3 songs over the 6-minute mark in length and one over the 10-minute mark. The guitars on here are really melodic, and in addition to the typical black metal shrieks, you get some melodic singing that often sounds like group vocal chants, kind of like a Viking choir or something like that. And all the song titles and lyrics are in Finnish. I mentioned that, I think. So yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce too many of them. I might say a couple of them in passing. But my favorite track is currently the title track, Tavastland. And unlike a lot of black metal for me, this production on this Havukruunu album just sounds great. It has a great atmosphere and folky vibes. It even has a bit of traditional heavy metal music while remaining true to the core black metal sound with fast drumming, tremolo picking guitars, and shrieking vocals. This album is a must hear for black metal fans and something I recommend to people even if they don't usually like black metal, because this is one of the best bands in this style. And I think it's an easier band to get into than most black metal, especially if you like progressive music or other styles of metal, as this kind of blurs some genre lines and is really good. So if that sounds good to you, check out Tavastland by Havukruunu. Next, I want to talk about Dominic Sanderson, who released Blazing Revelations also on February 28th, the second album by this artist from the UK. Now, this is experimental progressive rock. It's got some alternatives, Canterbury scene, folk, jazz fusion influence, very much all over the place. I'm also putting this in my excellent tier. Definitely one you have to listen to right now if you're a Prog fan, right after this video. And the last track on this album is a 16-minute prog epic called Lullaby for a Broken Dream. I think the whole album's only 4 tracks, I believe it was. Definitely check this album by Dominic Sanderson out if you're a fan of King Crimson, Steven Wilson, and Pink Floyd. It's got the angular, dark, experimental moments that sound like King Crimson, and some of the moments even have things like horns in them. There's other moments that sound more like singer-songwriter music, like Steven Wilson and Pink Floyd songs. They have those moments, but then they have enough sprinkling of artsiness and psychedelia and jazz. So you always know you're not just listening to an alternative rock or a folk rock band, but they have moments where they can kind of go there for a bit and then go off on an adventure. If that sounds good to you, check out Blazing Revelations by Dominic Sanderson. And I also really loved his debut album as well. So that's 2 in a row, really excellent releases from Dominic Sanderson. Next up, I want to talk about Everon and their album Shells. This is the 8th album by this German band, and it's neo-progressive rock with some metal influences, kind of rock opera influence as well, maybe even some like folk and world music vibes. From a lot of variety on this album here from Everon. I'm also putting this in my excellent tier. And I'd never listened to an album by Everon before this, but I heard the single No Embrace ahead of the album release. I enjoyed that. And a lot of this album feels very much like a Broadway rock opera. There's mostly male vocals, but there are some tracks with female vocals. There's lots of variety on display. Some tracks have that dramatic Broadway rock opera style. Some are more ballad-like. Some have a world music and folky vibe, and some have that more hard rock and metal side. And they all kind of have this progginess to them. And there was even one track that had a harsh vocal moment, which I was surprised by because it didn't seem like that type of band, but there was just like one brief moment with a harsh vocal. If that sounds good to you, if you want to hear some great prog music that dabbles in a lot of different sounds and has some great variety, definitely check out Shells by Everon. Next up, the last one I'm going to put in my excellent tier for today is Primrose Path with their album Ruminations. And this is the debut album by this Australian band. It's progressive metal with grunge, post-metal, and new metal influences. They feature female vocals on here, so check it out if you enjoy the band Matter Mortem, because they kind of reminded me of that, where you have great female clean vocals over this dark, almost gothic sounding progressive metal. It's a bit grungy, definitely a cool sound, and interested to hear what this band does next. So check out Ruminations by Primrose Path. Now let's move into the very good tier. And here I have one that I would normally put in my excellent tier, but it's a deluxe edition of an album that came out in 2024. It's Dirt Poor Robins with Firebird, the deluxe edition. And I'm just evaluating the 3 new songs. There are 3 new songs on here. So I'm kind of thinking of it as like an EP, because it's kind of weird when these deluxe versions come out. Like, do you rate it based on like the whole album, like of songs that already existed and came out last year, or do you rate it just on the new stuff? So I decided to just think about the new stuff. And this is a great band from the US, Dirt Poor Robins. It's kind of, again, progressive rock opera, very dramatic, but also like pop and indie alternative, even post-rock influences. And this is the deluxe version of their 8th album. The original Firebird album came out in 2024, but this new version starts off with the 3 new tracks that weren't on the 2024 version. Then it just follows those 3 tracks with the 2024 album, I think just exactly how it was in 2024. I don't think they've changed any of the tracks after the first 3, to my knowledge. So I decided to just rate it based on the new tracks alone. These new tracks are amazing. They fit right in on the album. I honestly wish they just released the album with these tracks in the first place. But if this was just these 3 tracks on an EP, I'm just going to put it in my very good tier. But together with the whole album, I'd put it excellent tier. So that's Dirt Poor Robins with Firebird Deluxe Edition. If you haven't heard the whole Firebird album, this is your opportunity. Go check it out. Listen to it with these 3 new tracks as well. And that's, I think, the best way to listen to it. And if you have heard the full Firebird album, you definitely got to hear these 3 new songs, because I think they add some new cool stuff to the album. Next up, I want to talk about Dim Grey, who released Shards also on February 28th. This is the 3rd album by this Norwegian band, and it's kind of art rock with alternative pop, indie, and progressive influences. I'm also putting this in my very good tier. And I thought their last album was good, but I wasn't blown away by it. I was really hoping they could outdo their last one with this. The 2 singles from this one were really, really great. So I'm happy to report that I like this new album by Djabe better than their last album. Very beautiful music here. It's easy to listen to. It's accessible, but it has depth in the composition. Performances are great. The production and soundscape sound beautiful. It just doesn't have anything super innovative or interesting that grabbed me in a way that would make me want to keep coming back over and over again. I kind of need something like that to bring it up to the excellent tier, but I'm still going to put this very good. The vocals in particular are really well done on this release. They remind me of a bit of that Joe Payne, who has some great solo material. He was also the vocalist on the most recent Jordan Rudess solo album. For some reason, I got that kind of vibe from it. It's really well performed, dramatic, beautiful, and catchy. If that sounds good to you, check out Shards by Djabe. Now let's talk about a couple power metal albums. In my very good tier, I have Avantasia with their album Here Be Dragons, the 10th album by this German band. Symphonic power metal, kind of rock opera, heavy metal, hard rock, progressive metal influences too. The two singles I heard from this one by Avantasia were both really fun songs, so I was looking forward to this album. And this ended up being a really fun album. Definitely unlikely to make my year-end list or anything like that, as these types of power metal rock operas, they're usually a bit too cheesy to rank too highly for me at the end of the year. But they are fun to listen to. The guest vocals on one of the tracks, Here Be Dragons, I think, by Jeff Tate, are great. Jeff Tate from Queensryche, he's not in Queensryche anymore, but the original Queensryche vocalist. He proves that he can still sing amazingly well with power. He can hit the high notes even at 66 years old, which is impressive. If you're a power metal fan, you definitely need to check this out. And if you're a fan of Queensryche and Arion, I think there's some similarities between Avantasia and those acts. So definitely check this out if you like that kind of music. And another power metal one that I want to touch on is a band called Arion, but it's not the Arion that I usually listen to and know and love. That's Ayreon with Arion Lucasen. This is Arion, and it's The Light That Burns the Sky is the name of the album. And this is the 4th album by this Finnish band, and it's symphonic power metal. I'm also going to put this in my very good tier. I never heard a full album by this band before, but it's just catchy, well done power metal for fans of bands like Hammerfall, Dragon Force, and Blind Guardian. The Light That Burns the Sky by Arion. Oh, and the last one for my very good tier for today is going to be an instrumental album by Gleb Kolyadin. It's called Mobula. This is the 4th album by this Russian musician. It's instrumental progressive rock with classical, jazz fusion, new age, and post-rock influences. Also very good music. Gleb Kolyadin is a Russian pianist, composer, and arranger. He's the co-founder of the chamber prog duo I Am the Morning that originated in Russia, and they're now based in the UK. I never listened to a full album by him before, but I enjoyed the single I heard ahead of time called Glimmer. And I really enjoyed the whole album. I would have liked it more, of course, if it had a great vocalist singing over the music. This is all instrumental. It's very focused on keyboards and piano. It all sounds very beautiful, very peaceful. It kind of reminds me of post-rock music like Sigur Rós, but it also has odd time signatures like prog music. It also has these classical and new age vibes. If you like peaceful, beautiful instrumental piano music, this is definitely something to check out. It's one of the best things I've heard that meets that description. But if you want something with any heaviness or you need something with vocals, this isn't for you. So this is definitely one to skip if that's what you're looking for. I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. I was open to it, and I can appreciate music like this until it's worthy of my very good tier, but at the same time, I kind of need some vocals to hook me, or else the instrumental stuff really needs to be like mind-blowingly awesome and virtuosic and have really interesting, unique compositions to keep me engaged. This was just, very good piano, well-composed stuff. If that sounds good to you, check out Mobula by Gleb Kolyadin. Now I've got 3 albums left in my good tier. I'm going to start with one by a band called, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Djabe, Djabe maybe, and Steve Hackett. It's a collaborative album called Freya Arctic Jam. Djabe is a Hungarian band, and Steve Hackett, of course, is the legendary guitar player from the UK from Genesis. And this is mostly instrumental jazz fusion. It's got some progressive rock influences as well. I'm just calling this good. There are vocals on the album in some parts, but it's very heavily focused on instrumental music. Again, like the Gleb Kolyadin album, I would have liked to hear more vocals to make it more interesting for me, but there's great playing here from all members. In particular, I like how the bass playing sounds. It really pops. There's some parts with cool slap bass sounds. The music's pretty easy to listen to while still being intricate. You can tell the players are very talented, but it does kind of sound like background music. Sometimes it's like smooth jazz you could hear in an elevator at times. If there were more vocals and if the music took some more stylistic risks or had some more surprises, twists, and turns, these players definitely have potential to make excellent music. But I'm just going to put this in good tier for what it is. And next I want to talk about Architects and their album The Sky, the Earth, and All Between, the 11th album by this band from the UK. This is metalcore with alternative, progressive, gent, pop, industrial, and kind of post-hardcore emo influences all in there. I'm putting this in my good tier. Architects, they're great musicians, but I found their output has been pretty hit or miss over the course of their career. The stuff that I've heard from them that I like best was when they're at their heaviest and almost like chaotic, some of the early like mathcore sounding stuff. But some of their albums went a bit too pop and mainstream radio rock sounding for my taste. I was hoping for more of the heavy side here, but I can embrace the experimentation and the genre bending as long as it's not too close to that pop auto-tune sound. I'd kind of put them in the same category as Bring Me the Horizon, as they're both kind of hit or miss bands that started really heavy and brutal and chaotic and went more towards this pop and accessible sound. I think this album by Architects is better than their last 2 albums, which may be their 2 worst albums, their last 2 for me, although I don't think I've heard every album by Architects, so I'm not sure, but I've heard a bunch of them. There's some songs on this new album by Architects that are a great return to heaviness and are, show their more hardcore roots. That was great to hear. But they do still have some songs that sound like this radio pop rock on here. So I'm just, I think this just gets good tier. I think if they lean more into their heavy side, this would have potential to be very good tier. But the radio pop rock sound is very average and kind of boring for my taste. It's catchy, but there's something about it that rubs me the wrong way. It might be like the song structures being kind of predictable, verse, chorus, maybe an interlude. And then it might just be how the vocal production sounds and vocal effects. Maybe this could grow on me if I listen to it more, but I don't have that much desire to listen to it a lot. I think if you like Bring Me the Horizon, you should definitely check this out, this one from Architects out. Also, if you like Spirit Box, I think this is like a version of Spirit Box with male vocals, but it's just not quite as well done vocally as Spirit Box or instrumentally as Spirit Box, in my opinion. So I really like Spirit Box. The parts of this album that I like kind of reminded me of them, but then there was some other parts that went a bit more Bring Me the Horizon pop kind of sound. If that sounds good to you, check out Architects, The Sky, the Earth, and the All Between. And last one I want to talk about today in this video is Seawater by the band Mostly Autumn. It also came out February 28th, 15th album by this band from the UK, and this is progressive folk rock with Celtic and hard rock influences. It's wild that this band has put out 15 albums. I don't think I've ever heard any of them before, so this is my entry point into Mostly Autumn. This album ends with the title track, which is a prog epic that is over 19 minutes long. The whole album is well written and performed, but I did find it a bit cheesy and kind of not catchy enough to justify the cheesiness. So, like power metal and rock operas, for example, can be kind of cheesy, and it's okay as long as the hooks are just undeniable and fun. But this release sounded sometimes like that rock opera sound, sometimes like folk music, sometimes like prog music. It had male and female vocals, and they just sound kind of cheesy and dramatic. And they didn't have the undeniable catchiness and fun that I'd want to balance out that cheese. So even though I think this is good music, the musicianship, writing, and performances are solid, I likely won't go back to it much. That's Seawater by Mostly Autumn. I still think there's something here for people who like this kind of progressive folk rock. Definitely something to check out if you're a huge fan of prog. Didn't quite hit the mark for my taste, but I think there's a lot of people out there that would like this album, Seawater by Mostly Autumn, so I wanted to put it on my list. And that's it for my first impressions of these 12 new albums that came out on February 28th. Let me know what you think of these albums down in the comments below. And did anything else come out recently that you think I might enjoy? Also let me know. And hopefully I inspired you to check these out. I doubt there's too many people that listen to all 12 of these, as they're kind of a range of styles. So hopefully I turn you on to something. And if I do, also let me know which one you checked out based on my description and whether you like it or not. And stay tuned for my next video. I will probably be doing my top 10 albums of February 2025 pretty soon. And then, wow, once I've done that, we're probably going to be already almost at March 7th, where we're going to get new releases from a lot of great bands like Jethro Tull, Spirit Box, Whitechapel, Car Mechanic, Ghost of the Machine, Echolyn, Cryptosis, and Lady Gaga. They're all releasing new music on March 7th that I plan to listen to and talk about. So if you want to hear my first impressions of those in maybe just under a week's time, definitely hit that subscribe button if you like metal, rock, and prog music. And what else is new? Oh, something really cool that I heard, some news that I want to mention on the channel, is the Mars Volta played a brand new album live before it was announced to be released or anything like that. So that's really cool. They're on tour right now with Deftones, and they just played an entire set that was all new music, and it's like it's a whole new album. So I'm really excited to hear the studio version of that. I listened to a couple of the live tracks on YouTube, and it sounds really, really interesting. Love the Mars Volta, so excited to hear what comes of that. In about a month's time, I'll probably post a release radar, which I think that's going to come out in April. Rumor has it. So that'll probably be on my next album release radar. I can let you know exactly when that's coming out, what the album's called, what my expectations are. Another cool thing that I want to mention is that the band from Norway called Sycophant is releasing an EP called Red Sun on March 20th. And that's progressive rock with jazz fusion and metal influences. And I was lucky enough to get to hear it early, and I got to tell you, this is an excellent EP. I really love their debut album. Sycophant, they're a progressive rock band from Oslo, Norway. And I love their self-titled debut album from 2024. I did a full-length review for it on my channel. And I was really happy to get a promo copy of that CD, as well as this EP early. I love this as well. Equally as excellent as their debut. And the cool thing is this new EP from Sycophant is the first of two interconnected releases, both thematically and musically, with the second set to arrive later in 2025. And then together, these two EPs will form a cohesive album, which will be available in physical formats, vinyl and CD. And this release from Sycophant, it dives deeper into the concept and sonic universe first introduced on their debut album, exploring and expanding upon its evocative desert themes. It has adventurous storytelling, intricate arrangements, fluid exploration of genres, rooted in progressive rock, but reaching into cinematic, jazz-inspired, and even metal territories. So put that on your list to listen to. That's Sycophant and their new EP, what's it called? Red Sun. So just wanted to plug that a little bit at the end. I'm going to obviously talk about that a little bit more closer to the release date and mention it again just so people check it out for sure, because I think that's one that I really want people to check out. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I don't know how many people will watch all the way to the end, so it's kind of a weird, maybe I should have plugged that new release from Sycophant at the beginning, but I will of course mention it again, so stay tuned. Peace out.